And we will, as Jim said, start the main part of the meeting in just one moment. I'll mention we have 36 people on the call, and we are thrilled to see every one of you. We just had a really lively, I thought, new member discussion. I will mention that our founder, Lisa Herrick, is sick, and so others of us will be covering for her today. And that's pretty hard to do because she is a class act and her shoes are very difficult to fill. But we will be doing our best.
I just put the donation link in the chat just to get it going.
Oh, okay. The donation link is in the chat before people even know what they would be donating for. But stay tuned and you will.
We'll do it later again too.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost up to 50 people already. And I think I will go ahead and start. So my name's Mary Pence. I am part of the leadership team of 31st Street. And today we're going to be focusing on state Democratic parties. Martha Lanning, who's the inspiring head of SPAN, the State Party Advancement Network, and our own Jim Shelton are going to be presenting, and they will be explaining why the state parties in Michigan and Pennsylvania in particular are critical in this year. But before we start with the speakers, I want to talk about something that I've been turning over in my mind. I am by nature an optimist, and as I talk with different people about our current political climate, I find that I do not share their fear and anxiety about our November election. I know we have to put our shoulders to the wheel and we have to give our all, but I don't really get taken in by that fear and anxiety. So an old political friend from Ann Arbor, Michigan, has been visiting us this week. And knowing that she cares as much as I do about keeping the White House and keeping the Senate and taking back the House, I asked her, so Lana, what sticks out for you in our political environment right now? And she thought for just a minute, and then she said, we, meaning we Democrats, are in a completely different place. In 2016, we had no idea what we were up against and what to do about it. And now we know exactly who the MAGA Republicans are and exactly what to do about it. So maybe this isn't a set us back on our heels kind of moment for you, but it was for me. And I thought back to 31st Street's first election cycle in 2017, and each of the 7 election cycles since then, including this year, and just reflected on how much we have learned and how much we have done so that now we know exactly what to do. And we just have to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. So as you listen to today's presentation about raising funds and voter registration and fighting disinformation and letter writing, my request of you is to challenge yourself to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it, because together I know we have and we will continue to make a difference. And with that, I would like to introduce Jim Shelton, who is 31st Street's political analyst.
Thanks so much, Sister Mary. And I see that our guest, Martha Lanning, has arrived. So we might want to please make her a co-host. And again, to introduce myself, I'm a retired epidemiologist and now my new life as a political analyst for 31st Street. And I depend upon slides to communicate. So I'm going to do that. Okay. People see that, Mary? And hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So I think Mary, you may have been surprised to see Mary, but I don't think she actually mentioned that our wonderful founder, Lisa, came down with some kind of stomach flu in the last few hours. So she's pinch hitting for that. And I think she did a great job, even if she is my sister. Okay, so first, start off with a little bit of a celebration. Our last major effort was raising money for grassroots groups in North Carolina and Montana. Our goal was $200,000, and we raised over $260,000. I think maybe even closer to $270,000, and that's going to help these key states, particularly with voter registration and other things. So thank you very, very much. We had a few number of new people on the new member orientation. Most of you know these concepts, the way we operate. I won't go through them, but I will just say that we work hard. I work hard every day to find good places where I think we'll have the most impact for our efforts, our money, and otherwise. So what are our precepts right now in 2024? Well, the major one is that, and we'll come back to it, there's a huge amount of money going for what I call the marquee races, the ones you know all about. Not just Biden, but the key Senate races, the key House races, and so forth. That's a good thing because people do know what we're up against, but they don't necessarily know the best place to invest money. It's a good thing that these candidates are getting a lot of money, but at the margins, our view is there's much better places to invest money to help them. So we fund what we call infrastructure. And right now is the best time for that. And that's really two components primarily. One, Democratic parties that we're going to hear about today, and these grassroots groups, the so-called 501c3 and 501c4 grassroots groups that also need funding to do their complementary work across candidates. Of course, early money is really crucial. So much money comes in at the very end, it's almost useless, I'm sorry to say. Here's another point, which is that, of course, we want Biden to get elected. It's the most important thing, and everybody's focused on that. But also, we really need to hold the Senate and win the House. And in our view, focusing a bit more on the Senate is actually a really good investment, as long as we can do the rest of it at the same time. So that's what we're trying to do. But we do it again by supporting this infrastructure. Also, we really think that state legislatures are really important for a lot of different reasons, and both in terms of what they do, but also we're completely convinced that when you have good, strong candidates running in the down ballot, that they will turn out other voters that would not otherwise turn out, that will vote Democratic and support the whole ticket. So we will be supporting legislatures later on. But the thing is, even though in some ways it's a fairly narrow set of states, there's still a huge amount of need of an opportunity, and we do make decisions about priorities. Okay, so here's a headline I saw in the New York Times last week. Not only is Biden going to raise $1 billion, but there is $1 billion, and I saw another estimate, somebody said another $2 to $3 billion that outside groups are raising to specifically help Biden's efforts. Okay, I think it's great that that's happening in a way, but the problem is that in my view, the large majority of that money is going to be spent on advertising, especially television. And I'm kind of beating up a dead horse here in a way, I suppose, but it's just a bit of that money redirected would have so much more impact, but it's not the nature of our system, but it's what is the nature of what we can do. So we have this metaphor. I got it from Martha Lanning to begin with, actually. The three-legged stool, the candidates, the Democratic parties, and the grassroots. And to make that stool sturdy, we feel like we need to reinforce these other two legs. So here's one way of looking at the priorities across some of the more important states. The darker the blue, the more significant we think is that particular endeavor, and also what the opportunities are, right? So priority is always a matter of need and opportunity. So we look at this, we look at it over time, and of course, right now, it's Pennsylvania and Michigan. So this is how it translates into action, which is that, again, we're going to be funding grassroots groups and Democratic parties. There's so much we want to get done that we're doing this in pairs. So we have a fundraiser. I hope we're going to do it like every 5 weeks or so. The blue bar checks are the ones we just had, very successful in North Carolina and Montana. And so the red marks are what we're doing, check marks are what we're doing right now. And maybe it's a lot to expect of you to be kind of continuing to ask you for money and other kind of support for these efforts. But, this is the election of our lifetime, I really believe. And so the fact that you're here means you must believe that to some extent yourselves. But I'm hopeful that we'll be doing more of these grassroots groups in pairs, and then we'll be doing state legislatures later on. Okay, now this is the most important slide I have to talk about, and I hope you can see it all. It's about the Electoral College and what the challenge really is for us to win. And the underlying proposition is that we have a pretty solid win in 225 electoral votes. There's another 45 we need to get to that 270 level. But this is just to show you what vital role there is for Pennsylvania and Michigan. So Pennsylvania is 19, Michigan is 15. Even with those two, there's still a gap of 11 just to get to 270. So here's what else is sort of on the table, and it's not that much. Because of the new census and redistricting, we kind of lost 2 votes between this now and 2020. And, to get that additional 11, there are not that many options. We didn't win North Carolina last time. And in my view, Georgia is pretty iffy. If we don't win Pennsylvania, where are those 19 votes going to come from? And still to get us another 11. We would absolutely have to win North Carolina, which I think we have a decent shot at. But Pennsylvania and Michigan are just totally, and Michigan's another 15. I mean, if we lost Michigan, it might be a little easier to fill in that gap. But here's the other thing is we actually need to win pretty decisively. We know the nature of the electorate and what the MAGA folks will do. They'll protest everything up and down. And, we really want to win by more. So Pennsylvania and Michigan, just so important. But there's more because they are not only important for the presidency, but they're very important also for the Senate, the House, and the legislature. So there's a key Senate race. There's roughly 3 key House races in each state that we need to defend or pick up. And key legislature races in Pennsylvania and Michigan. So And the other thing is a polling in both, this is presidential polling. I'm not focusing on it that much. I don't expect you to. Just to say that Pennsylvania and Michigan, this is ground zero, folks, for us to win the most important election in our lifetime. So I hope that's enough kind of stimulation or something. All right, so we're going to shift a little bit, and Martha's going to tell us a lot more. Martha Lanning, the founder of SPAN. Just to make, I don't want to steal her thunder, but just to point out that state parties have a unique role, and these are just 3 of them, that they play in elections and campaigns. They are responsible for a lot of data, notably the voter file, the van that we use in canvassing. They're the custodians of that. They're very important in voter protection. A lot of times they have specific statutory role in voter protection in certain states, as well as other things. And notably, they can coordinate legally with campaigns, whereas the C3s and the C4s can't. So we'll come back to that. I did want to say a little bit about voter registration. Right now, voter registration is crucial. And right now is sort of the time to be gearing up for it. And part of the reason for that is that Democrats move around more. And because of COVID, they did even more than they had done in the past. So there's a fair amount of kind of catch up that you have to do to try to find our supportive Democrats, especially the low turnout, low propensity Democrats that we really want to have turn out. Of course, we know there's a lot of unregistered youth that need to be reached. There's some voter suppression, for example, in North Carolina has new voter ID laws. So that's one of our main reasons why we like supporting grassroots groups. A lot of them that we identify the ones that we think are really good at voter registration, but we also, like to do our own on the ground activities like canvassing and voter registration. It's really good to be doing that because it's productive, but it also gives us concrete contact with voters and what they're, actually talking to voters and what they think. So the thing is, though, to do voter registration, you need to be really selective. It's very tricky. You need to be selective about how you go about it. So we're kind of, in a way, putting our toe in the water. In Pennsylvania, we have some good relationship with Dauphin County people in Harrisburg for some activity we're going to do in week after next. It's kind of a trial. We're not soliciting more people to turn out for it. We probably got more people than we need to do it, but we're going to see how well it works. We have a lot of people signed up for training, and signing up for the training is fine. And it's great. There's been a lot of response from our people, you people, to do this. The other thing I should say is that our letter writing with Working America, John's going to talk briefly about that later. I think that's a really, really worthwhile activity. I think we did some already in kind of a trial in Wisconsin municipal elections. Presumably, we'll be doing that in the key Rust Belt states like Pennsylvania and Michigan as well. So, of course, we are wanting to raise money. We put the donation link in the chat for you, and we really think it's important to support these 2 state parties. And Martha's going to tell us a lot more about that. Our goal is $250,000, which we think, we aspire to. And when you donate, you can, there's just one link if you want to donate. If you'd rather do Pennsylvania or you'd rather do Michigan, you can use the customize option if you want. And we're having this fundraiser April 10th, and my sister Mary would be delighted if some more people wanted to be co-hosts. We're doing pretty well co-hosts, and we're actually starting to make some progress on the fundraising toward this goal too, thanks to a number of you. So I think with that, it's time for me to turn over to Martha Lanning, a good friend and confidant and advisor to us Martha Lanning, she's the founder of the State Party Advancement Network, or SPAN. So over to you, Martha.
White. Thanks so much, Jim, for that great overview and introduction. Can everybody see the SPAN screen? I just want to be sure you can see it. Yes, good. So I'm Martha Lanning. I think I've talked to most of you who are on this call. I used to be the chair in Wisconsin. I had run for office, ended up seeing how weak our Democratic Party was in Wisconsin, and ended up building a year-round organizing program that helped us sweep all statewide races in 2018 and is still alive today. And in 2020 is accredited with winning the state for Biden. So the reason I'm here today is to kind of give you an overview about like why are state parties important, and then talk to you a little bit about Pennsylvania, Michigan's program. So Jim did a great job of teeing up that there are some things that only state parties can do, that there are wonderful C4 organizations and we need them around the country, but there are some responsibilities that they cannot manage. And that's why having strong state parties is so important, and why I've dedicated my time and to building them. It's because I believe we can't win as Democrats if we don't have stronger state parties. So one of them is just care for the data. As Jim mentioned, all of the voter data that you as volunteers collect when you're helping a candidate is owned by the state party, and that data can be shared with future candidates. But you have to have a qualified staff there that can help you gather the data, be sure that you're not losing any of it, cleaning it up, you know, bringing in the newest cell phone numbers, all those kinds of things that are really important. In addition, SPAN, so we're the donor table that helps state parties, we have helped them with technology that has helped them start using web scrapers. So in the past, state parties would have to go in and literally look at polling locations, and sometimes they get them on handwritten pieces of paper from the counties. The donor table is helping create what are called web scrapers, and can go out there and validate that the information hasn't changed day to day once it's set up. We also provide data analysis. State parties actually provide to candidates field reports, and not just a static report as it used to be where it just runs once a day, but you could go in and look at this dashboard at any time and see how many people are strongly supporting your candidate or against your candidate, how many doors have been done. And in the future, we hope to be able to get modeling down to even the school board level. It's normally candidates can't afford to have analysis done to that degree where you're going to say, who are the voters I am most likely need to turn out? And now we can, we hope to be able to do that for candidates in the future. A second thing that Jim mentioned that's really important that state parties do is voter protection. So 60% of all the election administration positions in this country are either appointed by the Democratic Party or are elected in partisan elections and down ballot elections that oftentimes there isn't a lot of attention put on. So it's really important that we have a strong state party that's monitoring that, especially in these times with Trump. But in addition to that, providing accurate polling locations. So we actually have been helping. Matter of fact, a group that you all supported, Dempower Labs, is out there helping state parties. And just recently in Georgia, they identified that the Secretary of State had inaccurate polling locations listed on the website. And so they went in and ensured that the state party had accurate polling locations so that all our literature, all the communications with voters has where they're supposed to vote and it's accurate, but also updating the Secretary of State's office to say you're giving out inaccurate information. So it's really important they're managing that. And then there's just the election protection. Not all states have the money to do all of this, but if we were doing what we needed to do, we'd be sure that we have lawyers that are assigned to every county. So when something happens during an election, we immediately have a lawyer that's volunteering to help us resolve that. You want to have poll watchers there that are well-trained. One of my favorite stories is through SPAN, the support that Dempower Labs gave to Arizona. There were 60 polling locations that they put in a heavy support into, that they had identified in the state of Arizona. And when the machines were going down and there were problems in the 2022 election, 58 of the places where that where those machines were having difficulty were where they had put election protection support. And those videos, because they were telling everyone, videotape everything, those videos are going out into lawsuits now, proving to the Republicans and to the courts that the election went off just fine. We kept track of everything. So they're really important. And then obviously a ballot cure is important. And then finally, we can work with candidates. And the biggest one here is really that state parties can transfer money back and forth so they can help candidates get a lot of stuff done that they wouldn't be able to get done if they didn't work with the state party. And then they also can share all of the knowledge across candidates. So multiple candidates doing research or gathering vote information, you can share that across all their candidates. So it's really important that we have strong state parties. So in particular, why should we have strong Pennsylvania and Michigan? So those are the two that you guys are looking at right now. So Pennsylvania is doing something that I am really excited about. So Philly has had really bad voter turnout in the last several cycles. Even while SPAN has been supporting Pennsylvania, we have just seen that Philly has just never come in with the numbers that we had hoped they'd come in with. And we got to stop just doing what we've always done. You know, people are like, oh, that's okay, I'll hire organizers. I'm like, that's what we did last cycle and the cycle before, and that's not working. And the problem is Philly is old school. They have this old school where it's all about influencers and about people, you know, so-and-so is going to ask their friend who everybody knows in town, like, who are they voting for? It's just that modeling has not gone down into lower generations. It may work great for the top, you know, for the older generations, but it's not working for the rest of the community. And so what Pennsylvania wants to do is they want to hire an ROD and some organizers that are going to really focus on Philly. And they're going to get in there and they're going to do some deep canvassing. So bringing in volunteers to do canvassing, not just are you turning out for Joe Biden and why is he important and all the other candidates in the state, but about what is important to you as a voter so that we can be sure that we're tailoring our communication in that community to what's most important to them. They're also going to have more time. You know that the Biden team is starting to build up a program, but it's way behind, in my opinion, that we're way behind where we were in 2020 with building a program on the ground. And so we really want to get these people in there as soon as possible before the Biden team is all ready to go so that they can have some time to build relationships and can really lift up the Biden's program, the coordinated campaign there, so that we're organizing in the best way. And we want to build on the volunteer base there. We haven't had the volunteer base that we need in Philly. And there was a great article that just came out. I'm going to share it right now. If I can find my chat, I might have to share it after. That it came out in I just shared it, the New York Times, and it's talking about why are we losing Black and brown voters. And one of them is just peer pressure, that if you're not in the community and you're not talking about what it is to be a Democrat and why Democrats are good, you're going to lose votes. And so we need to be sure that we have a strong program in these communities and a ground game talking about it. And I don't need to talk to all of you about that because I know you all love grassroots organizing so much. We're big believers together. So Pennsylvania is getting started, really important. I love their team. Noelle and Jalen are just amazing. I hope you get to meet both of them soon. And can't speak highly enough of both of them. They just need resources to be able to make it happen, and we appreciate you considering it. Michigan Project 83 is the other one. And this one, I'm just going to say that I'm sure it's no surprise to all of you that fundraising is down. I mean, when Planned Parenthood and Fair Fight and Run for Something and state parties are laying off people, are not able to hire the teams they need, something's going on. It's not just an organization, it's everybody. And across the movement, fundraising is down heavily for organizations, for infrastructure, not so much for candidates. Candidates are doing well, but our infrastructure isn't. And this is fearful. I'm very fearful of this because I believe that's why we lost in 2016. Hillary Clinton was a great candidate, but we did not have the infrastructure and the organizing program to help her get it across the finish line. So Project 83 has a program that's been up since 2017. Project 83 has been up since 2017. And Lavora Barnes has just kicked it out of the park. And I'm from Wisconsin, so we compete with Michigan quite heavily. And I'm going to tell you, she's beaten us. That she not only is doing amazing work on the ground, but she's taken Project 83 to really focus on the down ballot races there and supporting, because anything you do at down ballot helps the top of the ticket, but is really building those relationships. 80% of their doors in both 2020 and 2022 were done for down ballot candidates and then to help the top of the ticket. And it's working because they have a trifecta now. They've just done amazing things, building power for the down ticket, but then also fostering this new spirit of progressive energy. We need to get excitement going all around the state. And when you wait until just months before an election to start talking about it, it's just too late. You got to get things going all along the way and to engage about things that are important in that community long before the election, whether it's a new school being built or being sure that we get a stoplight at a particular corner, whatever it is. So Project 83 is out there really working with the volunteers, teaching them how to organize on all kinds of issues, and then helping candidates run. Michigan in 2022 had a Democratic candidate in every single seat. It is very rare that that happens, and just amazing that Michigan was able to do that. So I'm sure they're gunning for doing the same thing this year. It's just hard to see. SPAN, our donor table, has been heavily supporting Project 83 because they've been at risk of having to shut it down. Thankfully, I think we're over that. We're not going to shut it down, but we really appreciate the support that you're giving to them or considering to give to them, because Michigan's a critical state, just like Pennsylvania is. Without those two states, I don't think we can win the presidency. So, because I agree with Jim that Georgia, without a Senate candidate in Georgia, that's a tough state right now because the president has to do most of the funding to that state. So we've just really got to have our backups here. So that's the information that I have on both of those, but I know we're going to have a question and answer section, and I'm happy to answer questions there.
Yeah, I've been keeping track of questions in the Q&A and the chat as we're going, and I will pose some of those questions to Martha here in a minute. But first, I think we're going to hear from Mary Pence.
All right, Mary Pence again. So, you know, I've been a huge fan of Martha's. I guess it's since 2017 or 2018, and I love the way she can just rattle the facts off and rattle the persuasions off arguments off the top of her head. She is so convincing. Having been persuaded by both Martha and Jim, I want to ask two things of each of you on this call. The first is that, as Jim mentioned, we are having a Zoom fundraiser for the Pennsylvania and Michigan Democratic parties on Wednesday, April 10th from 7 to 8 p.m. And our goal is to have at least 30 co-hosts for that event. And we have 23 co-hosts, which is awesome. But my request of you is, would you be willing to be a co-host? We do all the work. We create the invitation. We, of course, put on the program. We provide you with a reminder card to send a couple days ahead of time. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat in just a moment. If you would be willing to be a co-host for that event on the 10th, which is still a ways off, and I see some names on the some of the people on this call, like Priscilla Little, who has already agreed to be a co-host. Thank you, Priscilla. So please join Priscilla and others and be a co-host for this event. All you do is just identify the people in your network, whether it's work acquaintances, neighbors, family, college roommates, who you believe share your passion for saving our democracy, and send them an individualized invitation and be a part of a successful fundraiser for these two key states. So my second request is, we have a goal of $250,000 for this fundraiser. So that's $125,000 roughly for these two critical state parties. It's awfully nice to head into that fundraiser with about a half of the goal in the bank before we start. So if you would be willing to help us build that cushion, or that advanced cushion, maybe is a way of saying it, would you please go to the chat and click on the link that Jim has put in, I think a couple of times. That takes you right to an ActBlue site and lets you make a contribution that starts working for those two parties right this very minute. And just a reminder, 31st Street Swing Left is an all-volunteer organization. Not a single penny of your money goes anywhere else except directly to these two state parties who need that money now. So thank you for considering both of my requests.
Okay, Mary, let me ask you to, one of the questions we had was, can you share the invitation and what it looks like? So maybe you can go find one, and then in a minute we'll come back to you and you can throw it up on the screen.
Yep, and meanwhile, I'm going to put my email address in the chat.
That too. All right. So question for Martha. I think you said we, or Democrats, are way behind 2020 right now. How did that happen?
Money. I will just tell you that our fundraising is just dramatically down from in 2023 compared to 2019 and 2020. And I think in part it was just there were so many people around the country just petrified by what had happened with Hillary losing that a lot more people were leaning in with a lot more dollars. And as things have happened, there's just been less giving. And even from our highest, our largest donors have kind of pulled back a little bit. I am fearful of that because there was a ton of money spent in 2016 too. And I believe that the reason we lost that election is we didn't really engage the grassroots. We didn't put the money in early enough to be sure that people were well informed about what Hillary Clinton was going to do to make their lives better and what we were voting for. And a lot more money was spent on how awful Trump was, and it left us in the hole. And so it is one of our biggest concerns, and it is why the State Party Advancement Network has been focusing on trying to ensure that state parties have a ground game. For example, Pennsylvania in 2022 had more RODs on the ground by now than they do now, right now.
Okay, thanks. Can you talk a little bit about what a donor table is? What is it and how does it work?
So the State Party Advancement Network donor table is just a group of people who are interested in building stronger state parties. So your whole 31st Street Swing Left, Jim Shelton and Mary are members of our table, and they get our briefings. So we give them briefings. So for instance, Pennsylvania started out this cycle in a really rough spot, and we were saying that we were not at this point giving them money. But we were able to lean in and create change there. They got a brand new executive director, totally turned things around, have an amazing team now on the ground. So the purpose of the table is to gather money and invest it in good places in the state, and then monitor those investments and be sure that they are worthwhile. We do not get paid. We do not take any of the money. So 100% of the money that you are raising for Pennsylvania, Michigan will go directly to that state party, and not a penny of it comes to us. We are paid for by a small group of people who believe in our cause and are saying, hey, we'll pay for your salaries to organize this, then share the knowledge with as many Democrats as you can. So the return on investment for you is 100% of your money goes into the state.
Great. Question maybe both Martha and Jim. In New Jersey, Menendez has withdrawn from the Democratic race, and today Governor Murphy's wife has withdrawn. That leaves Andy Kim as the sole Democratic candidate. Should we be putting resources into New Jersey?
No. Andy Kim, I love Andy Kim, and we've donated to him in the past, and he's a scrappy guy, and he's going to win, and they don't need us. So we have other fish to fry, but thank you.
Okay.
Somebody asked about Maryland, by the way.
Yeah, I was just going there.
Can I keep going? Okay. So we sure. We definitely do not want to lose the Maryland Senate race. And we saw the polling where what's his name is sorry, old age, was ahead. However, the same poll, which was the Washington Post, 50% of the respondents said they wanted a Democrat, and 35% said they wanted a Republican. So that poll, if that's what's worrying you, is really more about name recognition, which is often the case with polls. But believe me, those of us that live in Maryland are going to keep a very close eye on that. But so far, there's no reason to get involved. And I would say we don't get involved in primaries either. There's a hot primary, let it go. Whoever emerges, and in terms of what we do, we'll back the Democrat that wins. Over.
Okay. Any other questions? I think I covered all the question. Oh, no, here's one more. Martha, you mentioned voter registration, or Jim did also. How impactful is that effort?
So voter registration is just critical for us to be able to get out there and connect with voters and be sure that they have all the tools that they need and that it's easy. That's one of the big hurdles, especially for youth. If they know something's easy, they're going to get out there and do it. If they think, oh, I'm not even registered, I heard you have to register, it's challenging. And so it is very important that we have a good registration program. I will tell you though, it used to be when I was there as a chair, so this was in 18, it used to be that you left this to C3 because tax deductible dollars could be used for voter registration. I think the challenge now is that we really want to register Democrats. We don't want to just have a general registration. We want to be sure that we're registering our team as much as everyone else's team. And the Democratic Party caters more to what does it take to register Democrats. So I will say that I think the general feeling is we should be working on it when we can. It's just, again, money can be tight, and that doesn't always happen. I think there was one other question I just want to throw out there asking about like Allentown and Lehigh Valley and some of the other areas of Pennsylvania. The Biden campaign is already spinning up a coordinated campaign, and the woman who is leading this program for the Philly program, Nicole, is going to be the state organizing director in Philly. And I will tell you that as I mentioned earlier, I was not impressed with Pennsylvania earlier this year, and I was not investing in them. I went on a call that she was on the call, and I asked everybody to give me one thing they would invest in, and she kicked it out of the park. I'm like, okay, so why aren't we talking to her? I want to talk to that woman because the leadership at the time was not very strong. She is just an amazing young woman and is really being driven by stats. And with a very short time last year, spun up a program that helped counties that normally are ignored turn out many more voters. And so I think Nicole has got what it takes. We just need to get her the resources to make it happen. And I know the Biden team will be investing. So we're starting in the Philly program, and then we'll go from there as we watch to see what the Biden team is spinning up.
If I could add to that kind of in general, even though I'm always beating up on television and I should, the Biden campaign is trying to establish a decent amount of field program. It's just a very difficult thing to build up over time in a bunch of states. And, like the metaphorical cruise liner trying to change course or something. So that's another reason why these Democratic parties, they're there. They have personnel already that can help with that process. And if the Biden campaign operates in an enlightened way, and I have every hope and expectation that they will, they'll sort of work closely with the Democratic Party and have come up with a really effective coordinated campaign, as it sounds like they're doing in Pennsylvania. Over.
Okay. All right, a couple of more questions have appeared in the chat here in the last few minutes. In Michigan, the loss of the Arab American vote seems to be a likely or potential event. Is any effort being extended toward that community?
Yeah, so Lavora Barnes has been meeting with both the Jewish community and the Muslim community and really listening, being a sounding board, talking through and communicating, letting the president's team know just how badly this could affect them. I'm sure you all heard about the uncommitted primary that there was that going on. What I think this is why our organizing program is so important. I do think, for instance, the president saying that he is going to put an aircraft carrier to create a way to get food into Gaza is really important, building that and making that happen and being sure that that information is getting out there, that we are concerned about this. But I think it's something that you can't wait till the last minute. It's something that needs to be happening all the time. And I know Project 83 has been having meetings with this in their communities. And I'll give you one note of credit is they have a much larger population than Minnesota does, but yet a smaller population in Michigan than in Minnesota voted uncommitted. So I think that was a sign to me too of, ooh, okay, that's a good sign, like we're making some inroads, but there's a lot of work to be done there. It's a tough issue and a lot of work to be done.
Okay, question for Jim and Martha. How are you feeling about no labels? You losing a lot of sleep over it?
Yes. Jim,
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I'm a worrier and I won't say I'm losing sleep, but I'm worrying about it. I mean, I think Kennedy has anybody seen his ad? It's a joke, but the problem is that some people this is how we lost in 2016 to some extent too, with third party. Of course he'll draw, and there's the other ones as well. Traditionally, they don't draw that much. You know, in polling, they'll get a certain amount, but it shrinks down a lot. And, you know, it's another obstacle we have to deal with, you know, so.
I think we should always worry about it. Al Gore would have been our president if we wouldn't have had, a third party. Hillary Clinton would have won Wisconsin and probably the whole country if it wouldn't have been for the Green Party. And now with this no labels, I think people have the best of intentions behind it. Like, shouldn't we just pick the two best people and move on? And we're not part of the liberal and we're not bipartisan. I will tell you that I'm someone who's all for just having a good government. And I only see that hurting us, that I don't see how no labels is going to help us in any way, shape, or form. And I'm a Democrat, but that doesn't mean I agree with every Democrat. That's right. So I understand where people are at, but it's not going to help us.
Okay, turning to Ohio. Is Ohio not a high priority? Also, 31st Street did letter writing in 2023 and the referendum results were great.
Yes, our plan is to raise support grassroots groups in Ohio. We've already talked to a different donor table, the Donor Alliance in Ohio. We have good leads on good grassroots groups in Ohio. So for those who, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think our next effort is going to be grassroots groups in Pennsylvania and either in Wisconsin or Ohio also. So we're trying to stay two steps ahead to find good people to support.
Right. Okay, if there are other questions that you think of, please continue to drop them into the chat. The meeting officially will wrap up here in about 10 minutes, but we're happy to stay on and answer any additional questions that may come up for at least another few minutes after that. Meanwhile, let's go over to Michael Friedman sorry, I'm checking. Yep, Pennsylvania voter registration trial.
Thank you. I'm Michael Friedman, and I'm helping to lead the Team Pennsylvania. And as has been said, voter registration is one of our priorities. This is for outreach of participation by our volunteers. And, there's a lot of potential with voter registration because the U.S. Census reports that more than 10% of people who could vote are not registered, and more than 20% of people 18 to 24. And within certain populations is probably much higher than that. So what we wanted to do is do a small pilot project to test out what seems encouraging for when our people go into Pennsylvania. And what we're planning to do is the first week in April, we're going to go up on 3 different days, and we're going to go to a number of different venues. A shopping center, which is has a grocery store and some dollar stores. We're also going to post offices. We're going to a community college, maybe a university, as well as a neighborhood with door-to-door canvassing type activity for voter registration. And then after and we're going to try different approaches to inviting people to register. And then we'll come back and debrief about what the results of this have been, and it should inform what we do in the future when we plan other voter registration efforts. And all of this, I should say, is being done with the Dauphin County Democrats. That's where Harrisburg is. That's the county in which the state capital for Pennsylvania is. And we will also be working with them on a number of voter registration drives they're doing in festivals and fairs in the late spring, summer, and fall. So we will be reporting back on future plans based on what we know about is being planned and what the results of our small effort are.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Yeah, now the agenda moves over to me to talk for a couple of minutes about what we are doing on Facebook. This is something that's a relatively recent development in the last couple of months. You may have seen notes about it in the newsletter. But it's another way of reaching out to people who may not be aware of 31st Street, or, you know, a different group of your friends who maybe you don't know where they stand politically, and it's always a little sensitive. How do I raise the subject? How do I find out? And over time on Facebook, basically we all reveal where we're at. And it sort of gives you some clues. So I thought I would share the screen and show you where you can find us on Facebook. So you should be able to just see my basic Facebook homepage. If you come over in the upper left and just type in 31st Street, swing left. And it shows up here because I'm already a member of the group. But if I simply entered that into the search function, it'll give you a list of a whole bunch of groups, Facebook groups that have the name 31st Street or the words 31st Street in their name. You can simply join us by clicking on that. And then you'll see a blue button over here that would simply say join if you hadn't come here before. And then what we hope you will do is, come down, look at these things. We try and, promote our own events, but also provide a spot for everybody to trade, information and ideas they have. But one thing you could do, and we would greatly appreciate it, is if you took this post that I put up a couple of days ago about our upcoming fundraiser and shared it. So you simply scroll down the feed until you come across it with the nice logo here, and then hit the share button. It will then ask you a bunch of questions. Where do you want to share it? Well, I want to share it to my feed so all my friends see it. But then, and this is sort of a crucial detail, here's the post. It's just going to go up to my friends, but I want anyone to be able to see it. I want my friends to be able to share it to their friends. And by making this public, you can do that. So I change that to public. I can add a couple of words here at the top. Say, posting again because this is so important. And that's it. And I just come down, hit the blue share button. And now it has gone off to my friends. So that's it. Very easy. If you're on Facebook, it's something you can do. You can do it, only takes a couple of minutes a day. All right, John, Medallia.
Myself, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so thanks, Peter. Roberta McInerney and I are the co-leads of the 31st Street Letter Team. We want to thank all of the people who wrote 1,500 letters to voters in the critical swing state of Wisconsin and got them in the mail by March 19th. This was a lot of effort on short notice, so we really appreciate everyone pitching in. As you know, Wisconsin is a critical swing state for Biden's reelection and for holding the U.S. Senate. Our letter campaign was a strategic one on behalf of working America. Its goal was to mobilize non-college educated working class Americans to vote for Democrats in local elections in April by raising awareness of the need to support fair salaries for teachers. Working America's research shows that their letters are successful in turning out more people to vote for Democrats. And people who vote locally in April are more likely to vote in November. Even though it's early in the year, this is the second letter campaign we've completed, with the first one in support of Representative Tom Suozzi in New York, which of course we won. We look for letter campaigns that will have a real impact in a demonstrable way, and we plan on more campaigns between now and November. If you'd like to join in, please contact Roberta or me. Our emails will be in the chat. Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Okay. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the formal program. Mary, you want to add a few more words, wrap up and thanks, and then those who wish to stay around will stay online here and go through a few more questions. But otherwise, we want to say thank you for joining us today.
Excuse me, I will echo that. Thank you for joining us. I want to let you know that 5 people on this call have agreed to be co-hosts, people or couples. So thank you. And still I'm a Shelton, so I'm never satisfied. I always like some more. So if there's anybody else who feels motivated, please send me an email and you will help get us over our goal of 30 co-hosts for this event. And then lastly, I just say, please come to this event yourselves. I think the speakers will be fabulous. And of course, there's always a great, what should I call it, esprit de corps. There's a sense of community, just like there is here on this call today. And I particularly hope that some of the people who are in the living room with Kevin Burrell, and now I'm Glenn. No, I'm forgetting his partner's name, but in any event, I'm particularly hoping that some of you will join us for this fundraiser. So I guess I'm just going to end by saying go 31st Street, since this is a kind of a season of sports and a good time to get into the kind of spirit that really motivates people so much in a sports arena. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Okay. Many of you probably saw in the chat that Lavora Barnes, the Michigan party chair, will be one of our guests on April 10th. So she ought to definitely be worth hearing. A couple other questions for those who want to stick around. Michael, did you see the question that was in the chat of Pennsylvania? Philly versus Pittsburgh.
I did see that, and I will have to follow up with Catherine to find out more about what she was referring to.
I'll take it and I'll talk to Catherine. In
Okay.
Pittsburgh, we had a special deal with the Deluzio campaign and this is what we do for canvassing. When we're canvassing, we make sure we have good walk lists. Philadelphia is a totally different thing. We're not planning to canvass in Philadelphia. But we want to support the party and their efforts to do outreach in Philadelphia. I don't know if that answers your question, Catherine, but.
I was actually thinking of what Martha said, that Philadelphia was sort of behind where they wanted to be. And so they were shifting their efforts in Philly. And so I was wondering, what the shift is like what was it, and then what are they going to? Because I thought I've worked both in Pittsburgh and Harrisburg and thought that their on the ground efforts were pretty good in both those areas.
Yeah, so Catherine, in 2020 and in 2022, the state party has put out the same program. and just not gotten the same results in Philly. And part of it is the volunteer network. They need to build up a stronger volunteer network in Philadelphia versus in some of the other areas like Pittsburgh, Lancaster County, some of the places that I hear about that I see these huge turnout or these increase in voter turnout. They're doing much better at getting their volunteer networks there. So the difference here is not that it's a different program, but just that the program has not been working very well in Philly. And so they're trying to change by creating more of an engagement and getting out and talking to the leaders and building a volunteer network separate from the coordinated, like building power in that area to kind of give it a shot in the arm, I guess is what I would say.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I was really impressed, particularly in Harrisburg, which I saw, over a many months long period of just every weekend they had volunteers out registering voters and walking in the community and hanging out at, farmers markets, and, you sort of couldn't escape them, really. Their volunteer groups. So anyway, that is interesting to hear about.
Somebody had asked about how do you create enthusiasm, and quite frankly, that's one of the ways you create enthusiasm. When people are seeing, offices are open, signs are up in there that you're at the farmer's market and somebody is handing out literature, is doing these things. The more people see it being discussed, it gives you the more signs. I know I'm a believer in signs. I come from rural Wisconsin and I believe in signs. I know there are people in my community that vote based upon who so-and-so's neighbor's house, what signs are in their yard. That's who I vote for. All those kinds of things make a difference. And I think the Obama team did just an amazing job of creating that energy. And we've just got to do a better job of trying to create that for all candidates.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
All right, another question. Mary or Jim, do we have a date for the next fundraiser beyond April 10th?
I love that. Mid-May sometime.
Okay, that was my guess too.
Whoever asked that question had better agree to be a co-host for that one.
Yeah, Mary will track you down. Meanwhile, John Medalia dropped his email into the chat again, so that anyone who is interested in letter writing can find it there. Yeah, when can we see a transcript or a recording of this meeting, Mary?
I answered that. I put it in the chat.
Good.
It'll
Got
be
it.
on the website in a couple of days.
Actually, I answered it first, if you'll notice, if you look at the thing.
Well, I'm sure your answer was not as complete as my answer.
That's right.
Okay.
Probably not. Okay.
You kids take this outside.
Oh, boy.
All right.
I just
think
want to say one more time, Martha, you are amazing. You never run out of energy. You never cease to inspire me. You are just, whatever happens in November, I know what's going to happen, but I hope you will take a large share of the credit, or at least some of the credit, because I think you do amazing work every day of every week.
Well,
So thank you.
I appreciate that, but I want to give a big shout out to 31st Street Swing Left, because all of you have kept leaning in. And if there's one thing I'm fearful of, it's that will we have the infrastructure to get everybody across the finish line? And you all have stuck with it and just been committed and made really wise decisions, not just throwing your money anywhere and really researching it. I love working with both you, Mary and Jim, and the whole team, Michael. You guys are amazing. So thank you for doing all you're doing.